Okay, so why Swordsoul is, I think, the best deck for beginners to get into Yu-Gi-Oh! And I'm talking about specifically the Swordsoul Tenyi version. Uh, oh, I just realized that Swordsoul is one word. I don't know why I used it one word here, but not for the title. But anyways, the good thing about Swordsoul is that it teaches about the basics of modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Very well. With a lot of the Yugi boomers here, they are kind of afraid to get into playing modern Yu-Gi-Oh because their mind is basically stuck in the past. They're not really used to dealing with the what is going on right now. They say there's too much card text and stuff like that. If we get a closer look inside their head, they're bald and they only have these things around. There's the Flame Wingman. Their head is stuck in the GX era. They still think that the Egyptian God cards are good, which honestly they aren't, even with the new support. But yeah, it's I think Swordsoul is a good way, a good entry deck, to get them out of that kind of like old mindset. There has been a lot of like new mechanics introduced into the game since the GX era. We have Synchro, Xyz, Pendulum, Link, all these different things, all these different rules that kind of like we have right now. It's a lot to take in, so they're kind of like, it's quite difficult for the Yu-Gi boomers to take in all these things. So instead of like doing all of these things at once, we're just gonna boil down to one single mechanic, one single new mechanic, and that's just synchro summoning. The basic, very basic thing of just simple addition. We're not talking about like the addition where it's like, oh, there's this kind of tuner plus this other monster, and then you plus them together and you have to remember which ones are the tuners and which ones are not the tuners. No, you don't have to do any of that. And there's also like, I don't know, synchro climbing, I guess, where it's like you grab a synchro monster and then you attach it and then you add another tuner to it. No, none of that. Simple math. 4 plus 4 equals 8, 6 plus 4 equals 8. Super simple stuff. And why I say this is like much simpler than the plus tuner is because you don't have to think about the tuner. It's literally the only tuner in the deck, well, is Ecclesia and the token that gets summoned out. But we don't really think about Ecclesia. We just think about the token that gets summoned. It's just all three of these main deck monsters. They all can become like the level 10 or the level 8 because they just spawn a tuner by themselves. We see here, we have Jet Synchron. Remember the pile deck? It was just like a 60 card deck of like all sorts of different things, Rose Dragon and like making Baron the Floor, and then have the Halkid Fibrex combo. No. We don't do any of that. Just token. With the Jet Synchron here, we see there's like a bunch of card text, and then for the token, it's just a token. It doesn't have anything. So here, we're just literally we're getting rid of all this like random stuff, all these card text, and just like lead them in with the immediate next, Yu-Gi-Oh series after GX, the 5Ds. We show them the logo. We show them this character, it should look at least somewhat familiar to them. Yeah, it's like, hey, remember Yusei? Yeah, he appeared in this little tribute film that happened a while ago. Bonds Beyond Time, where we see Jaden, we see the Pharaoh, and we see this other guy. He's also there. It means that he is also part of the boys. We start to basically start with the even starting with the nostalgia. Remember the good old days. Synchro summoning. It was like at the time still like the cool new thing. White cards. Wow. Yeah. Feed them in slowly and they eat it up. and then we can slowly introduce them to like other things like link summoning and stuff like that. Oh, there's the Monk of the Tenyi. Oh, but it's unlike the other kind of like cards. No. Look at this access code talker. You see this around a lot, but it has so much text. Look at that. Literally, like, I don't know. That's a little paragraph right there. But look at Tenyi. Look what it has. Nothing. And that's how you know it's already superior and easier to consume and easier to learn. And the good thing about Swordsoul Tenyi is that it also has a lot of flexibility. We have the main deck ones, the Sword Soul kind of like monsters, but we also have all these things out of the archetype that kind of like work within the deck. It teaches about something about deck building. Incorporating other cards from other archetypes, but can still fit into your deck somehow. Baron de Fleur is a big one. Baxia is another big one, and Yazi as well. They're all really strong monsters that can work with Sword Soul very well. Oh, and another good thing about Sword Soul Tenyi is that it teaches a lot about modern mechanics. Though very basic ones, but they are still like very valuable experiences. Here we have a Chainlink 1 Chi Xiao Search, Chainlink 2 Moyi Draw, and getting Chainlink 3 Ash Blossom. Well, the Ash is not going to affect Chi Xiao because there's Moyi in the middle that's like blocking this whole interaction. So, basic chain blocking, very, very effective. Also teaches something about like, the rule of 5 to avoid Nibiru. We have summon 1 Moyi, summon 2 Moyi token, summon 3 Longyon, summon 4 Longyon token. And we know that, if we are not careful and we make Chi Xiao, we're going to get Nibiru. So instead, we go on the 5th summon, we just go straight into Baron de Fleur. And now we can't get Nibiru, or the Nibiru will get negated by Baron. Now we're protected and we can actually make some kind of a board. Nibiru is gone. Also teaches you about like card interactions, like how a chain basically kind of like resolves, and what is a cost. What it means for an activation cost. Very often you see people trying to imperm Ecclesia, or they try to like Valor Ecclesia. Well, that's not gonna work, because when imperm is getting declared, Ecclesia already just basically tributed itself, so it can't get negated by these like targeting effects. Teach it. I think a lot of people actually have made this kind of mistake, and I think it's pretty valuable, and it teaches so much more. I'm not gonna list them all, but you know what I mean. It's a deck with a lot of interactions. I think it has a very low barrier to entry, but has a high enough ceiling that can still make the deck very relatively competitive. It's getting phased out, but yeah, I think Swordsoul Tenyi is just a really good deck to get people into the game, to get accustomed to the pacing of the game, most importantly, and also teaches people how to actually read the cards. Once you realize how the deck works, or you get a feel for how the deck works, you realize that literally, for this card, for example, literally half of it, or at least like even 2/3 of the text are basically kind of like useless, right? Because it literally just says, oh, this card can summon a Swordsoul token. That's all you need to know. Like, that's basically how modern Yu-Gi-Oh is. It looks like it has a lot of text, but that's because it's essentially trying to explain, like, word by word how a person walks. Oh, you start not just like, oh, you take a first step with your left foot, take a step with your right foot. No, it literally tells you, oh, first of all, you lift your whatever muscle in your thigh, and then you bend your knee in a certain angle, and then you put your step down in a certain way. That's literally what the text is all about, and that's why there's like so much. It looks like there's so much text. but in reality, it's just the simplest thing. So yeah, that's why I think Swordsoul Tenyi is a great beginner deck. I feel like everyone should at least try it out if they feel like they're lacking in some like basic, I guess, game knowledge.